Chapter 97.1. Even if that knight is a demon, it doesn't matter. We're not asked to fight him, are we? We just need to bring out the magistrate. The defense captain had no particular attachment to this city either. As Gyurlik had said, the city's defense captains were usually of mercenary origin. They didn't bury their bones in the city just because they had been paid there for a long time. If the city falls, just take the property and go somewhere else. However, the Slovak kingdom wanted the magistrate. In case of an emergency, they were to bring out the magistrate. The defense captain couldn't ignore that order. It was unexpected that the enemy's vanguard could invade so boldly. Nor did they anticipate the others would betray them so quickly. Anyway, there was only one thing to do now. They had to take the magistrate out somehow. There were no other subordinates left, so they had no choice but to coax and persuade them. According to the spy, the magistrate is confined in the mansion. He will stay there until the Duke decides otherwise. Nobody expects him to be rescued from outside. Moreover, the guards are not that strong. Starting with gold coins and up to fiefs, the mercenaries began to be tempted, forgetting their fears. What does it matter if the opponent is a demon? If they don't meet him, they can make a fortune. Is that true? In with you guys in this. It's my life at stake too. Would I lie about such a thing? The mercenaries nodded, their eyes shining at the defense captain's words. If they could secretly whisk away the magistrate and escape the city, they could live lavishly in a town for the rest of their lives. Books were precious and not widely circulated. They were not necessarily written in the empire's language. The monks who copied books in the monasteries also used the ancient imperial language. Naturally, the books Johann had selected were written in the ancient imperial language. Now that I think about it, does Repiata Gong know the ancient imperial language? Just because one liked books didn't mean they knew the ancient imperial language. Books were held for their value and could be a symbol of dignity in themselves. After all, the nobles could hire readers to read for them. Well, it should be fine. Even if he doesn't know, he won't admit it out of pride, will he? Johann looked at Suitlig incredulously. Suitlig avoided his gaze, seemingly embarrassed. You said he liked books, didn't you? Whether he likes books or not, that's another matter, isn't it? That's fine. The books Johann had chosen were not particularly unusual: the Baptism of St. Gerios, the Gospel of Zolio, the Four Seasons of Duke Myon. As they were difficult to produce, books usually related to the church or represented the nobility's authority. Going beyond this would enter a suspicious category. As soon as Brynhild saw Johann, she hugged him tightly. Although smaller than Johann, Brynhild was a knight taller and stronger than most. Johann slowly pushed away Brynhild's arms with his hands. I'm truly grateful for your bravery. Gong is also pleased. I just did what had to be done. Is Gong inside? Yes. The others have already arrived. Johann rubbed his side and nodded. Sinurna, standing beside him, asked, Is that a book you're holding? Did you bring a book as a gift? Yes. How are you feeling? My magic is not fully restored, and my head aches like a hangover, but it's bearable. Suitlig didn't seem eager to join the gathering. In contrast, Sinurna enjoyed interacting with the powerful. Currently aligned with the Emperor's faction, but the more options for switching sides, the better. Johann had suggested Sinurna accompany him to provide some comfort. I regret having pushed you into using magic. Sinurna looked at Johann strangely. Normally, witnessing a magic surge meant either killing or preparing for trouble. But this knight was apologizing instead. Although Sinurna knew Johann was a unique knight involved with magic, still. Why are you looking at me like that? I didn't expect an apology. It's my fault for involving you. I'll be more careful in the future. You'd make a really good feudal lord. Is that sarcasm? No. It's rare for nobles to treat a wizard like that. Normally, they are more annoying? Arrogant? I was going to say they act like a son of a bitch, but that's not incorrect either. Many thought court wizard Sinurna manipulated the Emperor for her gain, but she had her struggles. For a wizard like her, the relationship with the employer was everything. A bad relationship meant life-threatening consequences for her subordinates. Everything she did or didn't do was blamed on magic. Such was the nature of magic. She had to make even the impossible seem at least feasible. Nobles think magic can do anything. They think paying gold makes everything possible. Do you know what Kardirian wanted? Not sure. He wanted an elixir of youth to make himself young and healthy again. Sinurna scoffed as she spoke. Is it possible? I don't know. What's certain is that I don't know how. Can you imagine how annoying it was to convince him? Must have been terrible. Why serve such a master? Because of the gold. They're all the same, so better serve the one with more money. Johann nodded, finding the explanation oddly convincing. When he nodded in agreement, Sinurna looked astonished. As Sinurna followed Johann, she stopped at the sight of an orc in the courtyard. Wait. That orc. What about it? It's from the Elohim family. Orcs didn't believe in gods and were greedy for money. Kings and nobles despised orcs but always sought them when in need of money. The Elohim family was famously wealthy among orcs. Having such an orc was unusual. Impressive to have such a companion. I don't know how it was managed. Ah. Of course, orcs are disrespectful non-believers. Sinurna, admiring the scene, changed her tone, realizing Johann was beside her. It would be hard for a devout knight to appreciate such praise. Wow. That person's family is so wealthy? Do you know how one can become friends with an orc? Chapter 97.2. The people who came to the place had expressions of ignorance. Johann smiled satisfactorily. Soon they would also know how silent Repiata Gong is. You guys should suffer too. The knights and mercenary captains were cautious with tense faces. They had already heard the rumors. They had to be more careful, especially since it was the Duke's lineage. However, Johann missed something. This was not a private meeting, but a banquet to be enjoyed with others. After Repiata briefly praised and the wine went around a few times, the mercenary captains started talking among themselves. They praised Repiata, the Bredoux family, and insulted the traitors of the city. Repiata didn't need to speak. The mercenaries did the talking for him, agreeing and responding among themselves. There was no reason to be angry about this, but Johann felt unfairly aggrieved. Sinurna kicked his foot and asked, Is there a problem? No. It's nothing serious. Then it would be good to talk a bit. It's a place where it doesn't matter if you don't talk. Johann's words sounded arrogant, but they were true. All the mercenaries and knights present knew who had crossed the city walls. People with less to their name talked more here, while those with more accomplishment sat quietly as praises came to them naturally. Johann was puzzled. The magistrate sat next to him, looking like a major criminal. Normally, such a person should be imprisoned, at least under house arrest. Johann couldn't know the discussions within the family. If the Bredoux family intended to keep the magistrate alive to govern the city, that must be the reason. The magistrate had lost most of his possessions, but cooperating was still better than dying completely. Karamaf, who had been rolling around in the corner gnawing on meat, came over and tugged at Johann's pants. Initially, Johann thought he didn't like the meat, but it seemed like he wanted to say something. Johann excused himself and stepped outside. Is there something strange? Karamaf growled and kept walking forward, indicating the direction of the smell. It was towards the kitchen. The kitchen of such a mansion was large, with many people working. Over a dozen servants were busily moving between the storeroom and kitchen. Karamaf stopped in front of a maid and started barking fiercely. Johann didn't know why, but he trusted Karamaf. Let me have a look at you. What? What is it? The maid was short and had rough skin from long labor. She trembled as if terrified by the sudden approach of a knight. Johann was slightly confused. Johann had confidence in his instincts too. If Karamaf had his sense of smell and hearing, Johann had his unique animal-like intuition. But he felt no threat from the person in front of him. She seemed like just an ordinary maid. Come here for now. The maid, terrified, looked around, but there was no servant who dared to obstruct a knight, especially one recognized by the Duke. Johann pulled the maid closer to the fireplace to get a better look at her face. Sir Knight. One of the servants, who seemed to hold a higher position, spoke up. If you want this, he'll send it separately, so here. No. That's enough. The servant grumbled internally and stepped back. What a fuss in the kitchen. No matter how much one brightens the colors. Johann was deep in thought. He wanted to force an answer through strength, but he was not sure about the other party. It made sense for Karamaf to bark if the maid was emitting a suspicious smell. But could that smell have been a misunderstanding? Working in the kitchen handling various ingredients, one could get smells on them. Staring intently at the maid, Johann hesitated. The flesh showing through her torn sleeve, where a snake-like mark appeared. Johann almost instinctively whispered, "Nessus?" At that moment, the maid's eyes transformed. Karamaf fiercely barked, attempting to sink its teeth and claws into the maid's neck. But the maid's movements were much faster. In her hand, which should have been empty, was a needle-shaped dagger. Recalling the technique he learned from Kegel, Johann grabbed the maid's wrist. The enemy's eyes turned to astonishment. If Kegel had seen it, he would have scolded, but Johann was not Kegel. He had no intention of just killing the opponent. "I swear to God, I don't intend to kill you. I have something to ask." The maid's face melted away, transforming into that of a middle-aged man, similar to a servant's face nearby. Johann realized that face belonged to the servant next to him. Kegel hadn't taught him that. Johann, feeling a bit wronged, tightly gripped the assassin to prevent escape. The assassin was shocked by Johann's strength. He had tried to dislocate his joints to escape, but there was no chance for that. Is this really human strength? At that moment, mercenaries wielding swords burst into the kitchen. "Nobody move. Move and you'll be killed." Who are you guys? Shit. Didn't I say there's no need to deal with this? Chapter 98.1. There was an adage that circulated like a joke among the mercenaries. It was the saying, "No matter the plan, things tend to go awry and change, so just give up and leave it to fate." Still, this was too much. The situation was more messed up than it should have been. The mansion, supposed to be devoid of people, was as noisy as if hosting a banquet, shocking the mercenaries who came through the secret passage. But they couldn't just turn back. The defense captain had an idea. With no other choice, the mercenaries headed to the kitchen as instructed by the defense captain. It seemed better to quietly solve the problem than causing a ruckus and drawing attention. Of course, things in the world don't always go as planned. "Why is that knight here?" The cry of the mercenary was desperate. Then someone said, "Kill him. He's unarmed too." Cornered, the mercenaries desperately sought a way out. No matter how formidable the opponent, they had spent their lives killing enemies. And the opponent was indeed unarmed. It might even be a stroke of luck. Their only chance to kill this demon. Johann sighed. The situation was such a mess that he felt more calm. The servant screamed, an assassin exerted force, Karamaf growled, and some raiders were causing chaos. In such times, it was essential to stay calm and composed. Johann struck the assassin's neck. The man fell like a puppet with its strings cut. There was much to ask, but it couldn't be helped. Good luck if he survived, bad luck if he didn't. Karamaf. Make sure he can't escape. The mercenaries, with bloodshot eyes, rushed into the kitchen. The servant screamed and stepped aside. Knowing that Johann was unarmed, they attacked without hesitation. In haste, Johann grabbed a ladle nearby. As the sooty ladle revealed its ancient blade from the soup, the mercenary was baffled. What is he doing? Johann stepped forward, swinging the ladle from the upper right to the lower left. It was a basic diagonal slash, but a swift and accurate strike that caught the opponent off guard. The mercenary couldn't even think to block and was struck on the head. Once, twice, thrice. A flurry of attacks left no time for reaction, and sparks flew from the steel helmet. The mercenary, bleeding from the eyes and nose, fell. Damn motherfuck. The ladle swung again. The dented and damaged ladle struck the mercenary's temple, ending his life. Johann let go of the handle with a slight regret. Thanks to the two who fell and blocked the way, the worry of being hit by a sword was somewhat reduced. Johann grabbed the fallen mercenary and pushed him like a shield. Those behind hesitated as they no longer had space to swing their weapons. When you're very close, blades become a hindrance. Johann threw the corpse and extended his arm to wrap around a guy's neck. As he let out a death scream, the mercenary's neck bone snapped. Naturally, the mercenary's short sword came into Johann's hand. As Johann grasped the weapon, the mercenary's complexions turned pale. "Leave the night dastard and run. The magistrate must be taken care of." The defense captain shouted in a voice mixed with despair and struggle. The mercenaries behind could be seen escaping. They didn't show it, but they were relieved. "Hey you sons of bitches. Where do you think you're going? Cough. As the mercenaries ran, Johann also ran. Thinking calmly, if the mercenaries had resolved to die unattacked, they could have inflicted wounds on Johann's body. Even if the kitchen was spacious, the space was limited and Johann was not wearing armor. They could have inflicted minor wounds on his arms and legs, if not a fatal blow. However, the mercenaries were terrified. Johann caught the ones trying to flee one by one and slaughtered them. A few servants fainted in fear at his demon-like rampage. It was hard to tell whether the raider or Johann was more terrifying. The mansion's corridor was a total mess. Given the status of those gathered here, guards were on standby, but the number of raiders was too many than expected. Where did all these people come from? Capture anyone worth taking as a hostage and kill the rest. Magistrate! Magistrate! Come out! We've come to save you. The magistrate cursed. He hadn't even asked to be saved, yet this chaos could put his life in more danger. My lord! Several guards lay fallen. At their words, Johann nodded. Mercenaries in front were struggling to enter through the wide corridor into the hall. Some knights and mercenary captains inside quickly armed themselves and blocked the door. The mercenaries could only curse, unable to enter. Chapter 98.2. From a distance, a tall knight could be seen swinging a battle axe, chopping off the head of a mercenary who looked up carelessly. It was Brynhild. Johann was relieved. If the entrance wasn't breached, those inside would be safe. The mercenaries were as good as cornered. Spare my life and I'll reward you. What nonsense. Kill him. There was another unlucky person outside, caught in trouble like Johann. Even with mercenaries rolling their eyes menacingly with weapons in hand, he shouted confidently. He was quite the madman. Even in this tense moment, Johann's body moved naturally. At that moment, Brynhild from the back of the corridor saw mercenaries flying in all directions. The short sword was already broken, and Johann entered, beating up mercenaries with his fists. The orc screamed and exclaimed. God damn it, God! Have you converted? If it's a demon, take the souls of those other guys. My soul is worthless. Stop talking nonsense and stick close. Johann swung his fist and smashed the head of an approaching guy. Only then did the orc seem to realize that Johann was a human. Johann of the Yates family? I've heard a lot of rumors, but you're really amazing. Is he a knight or a butcher? Johann was violence incarnate in human form. Some of the mercenaries in the hallway, terrified, took their own lives. The lack of spears and crossbows was so regrettable. Johann threw a sword and pierced the neck of the rushing defense captain. He didn't even know it was the defense captain. Holding two masterless weapons in his hands, Johann stopped. Covered in blood, the mercenary captains in the hall involuntarily shouted. Sir Knight! Sir Knight! We are allies. Please stop. I am sane. That's good. No matter how you looked at it, holding the weapons, it was clear they thought Johann was crazy. Johann cracked his neck and asked. What about the guy who went inside? There's none. Good. Go out and call the soldiers. Although there was a servant nearby, the mercenary captain didn't think to send them and hurriedly ran out. My lord, I can go. After roughly wiping off the blood-soaked cloth turned inside out, Johann looked at the shivering magistrate beside him and asked. When did you collude with them? Those guys didn't just fall from the sky. They must have come out of a passage somewhere around here. And you must have known about it. Repiata showed no change in expression despite such commotion. For Johann, it was rather convenient. It would have been troublesome in various ways if he had cried and clung to him in fear. I didn't know. I was locked up and couldn't meet anyone. How could I have colluded? The magistrate cried out in a voice full of injustice. It was sincere. He had never thought the defense captain would do such a thing. May I interrogate him? As long as you don't kill him, it's fine. As Johann put his hand on his shoulder, the magistrate screamed. I really don't know anything. I swear to God. I just didn't think of the passage. Please spare me. If you spare me, I will devote my body and soul in loyalty to you. I just put my hand on you. Johann was embarrassed enough to remove his hand as the man broke down like this. It didn't seem like the man was lying. Shall we move to another location for now? Repiata shook his head. Right now. I think it's safe. You're talking quite a bit today, aren't you? At Johan's joke, Repiata smiled slightly. Johan, seeing Repiata smile for the first time, was puzzled. Repiata gestured for Johan to come closer. Please ask about the Slovak kingdom. Understood. Johan approached the magistrate. The magistrate desperately shouted that he had some contact with the Slovak kingdom but was not that close and really had nothing to do with it. No one would say anything if we cut off an arm or leg of that bastard. The returning mercenary captains shouted fiercely. It was natural for them to be discontented, having almost died just coming for a meal. It was good to control the city using the magistrate, but managing the dissatisfaction of his subordinates was also an important task for Johan. Johan looked at Repiata. Repiata slightly shook his head. I asked, and it seems he has nothing to do with it. How do you know that? I told you, I asked, didn't I? Now that I hear it, it does seem that way. Thanks for understanding. Johan patted the shoulder of the understanding mercenary captain. The mercenary captain nodded his head, his face frozen with fear. The commotion at the mansion made the people of the city even more fearful. It was not surprising that hundreds could have been massacred if things went wrong. However, Repiata showed leniency instead of capturing and hanging the people. Normally, I should have finished preparations quickly and left for the town, but we've been causing trouble for each other. Johan looked down at the bound assassin, hands and feet tied, while Karamov glared menacingly, baring his teeth. But just as your business is important, so is mine. I can't just leave an assassin who lurked around me alone. Then kill me if you will. The assassin's face had changed into one not seen before, neither a maid nor a servant. It seemed they had changed their appearance. The assassin remained silent, head bowed. A captured assassin meant summary execution. Even if beheaded in a single stroke, no one could protest. Johan checked small bottles sealed with cork stoppers. They appeared to be deadly poison. Karamov had detected a slight odor emanating from them. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it right there. Wasn't that what you intended? The assassin retorted with a look that questioned how beating them and not intending to kill could make sense. I've encountered assassins from Venom of Nessus before. You guys aren't so secretive, are you? You think the guild strictly keeps the client's secrets? What a joke. Assassins have no loyalty. They stay silent because they know speaking up means death. Give them assurance of life, and they'll talk readily. Venom of Nessus was somewhat overhyped. This was partly inflated intentionally by the assassins affiliated with it, to attract commissions from influential people. But Venom of Nessus was merely an organization made up of selfish assassins. There were a few rules, but the guild members trusted themselves more than these rules. The guild was held together not by rules but by its cell-like structure. The assassin remained silent. Johan demonstrated a simple technique, and a dagger appeared out of nowhere, astonishing the assassin. How? Johan realized that there was no need for fisticuffs in the melee at the mansion. He had a hidden weapon at his waist. Now do you believe I've encountered assassins before? I owe someone a favor and want to repay it. This is your last chance. Will you confess and seek forgiveness, or choose death? I won't ask again. I will speak. Chapter 99.1. The assassin spoke up as if a glimmer of hope had emerged. People tend to weaken when they have hope. If I speak, swear to God that you will ensure my safety. All right. I swear to God. Of course, unlike the assassin's thoughts, Johan didn't hold oaths in such high regard. Oaths are only meaningful to those who believe and fear God. Even among those who believe in God, there are those who break their oaths, so it was unlikely Johan would care. No matter how welcome a member of the Venom of Nessus guild might be, Johan had no intention of risking covering for him. After all, hadn't Kegel said? I agreed to kill the magistrate and received 8 gold coins and 13 silver coins from the south. Right. To kill Repiata Gong. Who? Johan hesitated. Not Repiata, but the magistrate? Startled by the unexpected name of the opponent, Johan was taken aback. Who commissioned it? How would I know that? The assassin looked at Johan as if to say. There was never a case where the person who hired an assassin did it personally. Naturally, it would have been a servant or a maid who paid the money. He spoke Empire with an Eastern accent and was wearing quite expensive silk clothing. It even had embroidery. Seems like a pretty wealthy guy. If a servant wears such clothes. But still, it was of little significance. There were many who spoke Empire with an Eastern accent, from the Empire itself to the nomadic tribes and small kingdoms. Johann gave up on finding out about the client and asked something else. Did you plan to use poison to kill the magistrate? Yes. Using poison was a skill hard for the common person to know. An average person wouldn't know where to get the ingredients or how to mix them. Did you learn it at the guild? No, I grew up in a family of herbalists. I bought a few from other guild members in exchange for gold coins. Venom of Nessus operated in a completely different way from other guilds. Whether it was a merchant guild or a captain's guild, usual guilds actively protected and took care of their members. They defended their rights and nurtured new guild members. But this assassin's guild only shared a name and nothing else. One either survived long enough to rise or simply died. The transmission of skills was also limited. A new assassin had to figure out how to kill people on their own. If they wanted to learn from others, they had to find a way themselves. Kegel's swordsmanship was what he had accumulated over his life, not a skill shared throughout the Venom of Nessus. Just as the assassin didn't know Kegel's swordsmanship, Johann didn't know the assassin's poison. What about changing faces? It's a curse I received from a pagan temple during an Eastern expedition. Although it seemed like a useful trick, it was more of a curse. At the pagan temple, he had been robbed of his original name, lineage, and face. Changing faces might seem convenient, but there was no magic without a price. In addition to various preparations, each change brought the agony of bones breaking and muscles tearing. Upon hearing the detailed description, Johann's expression turned grim. From the beginning, the idea of crossing the sea to the east was impractical, and even if he went, it wouldn't have been a skill worth learning. There was too much to lose. An assassin originally couldn't even remember their own body. Having heard everything, Johann opened his mouth. I saved your life. According to the rules of Nessus, you would repay the debt with a life. Are you prepared for that? Yes. When Johann brought up one of the few principles, the assassin frowned. Someone, unknown, seemed to have told him in great detail. Then kill Kardirian II. The assassin looked at Johann with a shocked face. His eyes were saying? The assassin had picked his target. Targeting the Emperor was something no assassin would dare to do. Even with hundreds of gold coins, I can't accept such a request. But sometimes, one must accept unavoidable requests. Kardirian II has only one life, and so does a magistrate. Johann unsheathed his sword and cut the ropes binding the assassin. Go. Leave this city. If I see you again, I can guarantee your life. The assassin walked out with a defeated expression, staggering. Johann didn't have high expectations. Whether the assassin targeted the Emperor, didn't, or even failed in the attempt. If he succeeded, it would be an unimaginable windfall, and even in failure, it would deal a blow to the Emperor. If he ran away without trying, it would remain as a debt. Johann didn't care about oaths, but the assassin seemed to take them seriously. He wouldn't just run away casually. Chapter 99.2. When Johann saw the orc who came to visit, he wondered who it was. Only after the orc spoke did he recognize him. It was the orc from the Alatim family he had met at the mansion. May I come in? Johann shrugged his shoulders and gestured for him to come in. He had wondered why the servants asked. It was because the guest was an orc. Many were reluctant to let orcs into their mansions. Letting one in without the master's permission could result in a whipping. Thank you for allowing me. I came to thank you for saving my life. It was what I had to do. The orc was internally amazed at Johann's demeanor, treating a guest so naturally. It was too unfamiliar for a young knight. Did you receive your reward properly? Of course. After everything was settled, Johann received heartfelt thanks from both Count Ganelwood and Sir Carparty. Especially for Count Ganelwood, this incident was like a bolt from the blue. The city's conquest, which was the biggest challenge, was easily accomplished, and to think such a thing happened within the city. In return, Count Ganelwood cautiously offered some advice. Count Ganelwood guessed what Johann was thinking. Initially thought to be just a young knight favored by the Duke, his insane performance in the punitive expedition drew inevitable attention. Information about what kind of knight he was had already been gathered from the surroundings. While other knights would have already tried to mingle with the children of the Bridoux family, Johann was not like that at all. He was clearly keeping his distance on purpose. Count laughed scornfully. The Duke's children were not fools. They wouldn't do such pointless things. Johann understood what Count meant. Count Ganelwood is a clever person, said the orc, snorting. The expression on his face was not a pleasant one. Is there a problem? Ha! How many times has that guy cunningly extorted money from the orcs through trials? Hes a tenacious character. Johann didn't bother to respond. There was nothing to be gained by engaging in slander about the Count. Coaxing and appeasing the wealthy to extract money was a skill. There were more than a few nobles who borrowed money and brazenly failed to repay it. So, did you come here just to convey your gratitude? You could have sent a servant for that. Acting grateful in such a manner is something only a rude person would do. If one has self-respect and pride, they can't express gratitude that way. The orc pulled out a rolled-up certificate and laid it in front of Johann. Johann looked at it quizzically. If you're a knight, there must be times when you're short of money. I promise you gold in the name of the Elohim family. Is this a gift? What are you talking about? It's a loan. Johann was slightly disappointed at the orc's expression, which seemed to say, but even lending it was a big deal. Merchants lending money to nobles was because of the appropriate collateral. From various lands to rights. But Johann was a poor knight with almost nothing. All he had was his fists and a sword. He'll accept it gratefully. Johann did not show a reaction like. He expressed his gratitude and quickly pocketed it. Normally, other nobles also reacted that way when they were really desperate. But it was strange for Johann, who didn't seem in a hurry, to behave like that. The orc looked at Johann as if he found him peculiar. So, are you following Repiata Gong? It's a contract relationship. We provide the gold, and Gong will. The rest didn't need to be said. They were obviously expecting various rights and privileges. Some fools despise us for colluding with them, but it's a laugh. Is there a noble without a money source? Are the souls of merchants cleaner than ours? Even the normally arrogant nobles beg us in desperation. That's true. Gold is supreme. The orc hesitated in the middle of speaking. Are you flattering me? Why would I flatter you? As Johann asked curiously, the orc flinched. He had been speaking as usual, but remembering Johann swinging his fists and killing mercenaries in the mansion made him recall. The orc quickly straightened his posture. He thought it unlikely to be killed, but acting recklessly was foolish. And never mind then. I misspoke because I didn't think a knight would understand the value of gold. Please understand. Contrary to the orc's worry, Johann had no intention of killing him. He could extort a huge amount of gold later, so that much misbehavior was tolerable. You really seem strong. Where are you planning to go next? I have a fief to check on. You could send an administrator for that. Why bother going yourself? Johann, who wasn't setting up a family of knights nor intending to sit as a feudal lord, had no reason to personally visit each town to check. Shouldn't a young knight aspire for greater opportunities, whether following his lord or roaming the battlefield? The orc thought to himself. Johann seemed to covet the territories governed by the nearby small kingdoms and city-states, gathering soldiers for this purpose. The area was rife with targets for conquest, and the small kingdoms and city-states were preoccupied with various matters. It was a good time to attack. However, this was a misconception of the orc. The afterimage he saw in the mansion had left a strong impression. He thought of Johann as a knight forged in blood and violence. It's better to see for myself, then. Why bother seeing the town in person? It might help with managing my fiefdom. Why do you keep questioning my desire to inspect my own fiefdom? And no reason. Nobles did engage in fiefdom management. A savvy feudal lord would choose crops effectively, hire additional people without family, prepare useful equipment, and increase the annual harvest. But this was typically the work of a bishop-origin feudal lord, not something knights usually did. The management by knights was much simpler: collect taxes, collect more if insufficient, earn elsewhere if still lacking, and suppress any rebellions that arose. The orc began to doubt his assessment of this knight. Incredibly, it seemed there might have been a glint of intelligence in the knight's eyes, as impossible as it sounded. Chapter 100.1. The orc shook his head. It was unthinkable. A knight with intellectual culture was as unlikely as an orc who believed in God. Do you understand the current situation? The orc cleared his throat to enlighten this young knight. The knight was brave and strong, but apparently still lacked the ability to see the bigger picture. It was understandable. Most people only saw what was immediately before them. Only a few wise individuals could see the broader future. Who? All right. Let me explain. Repiatagong has received Umdim city. What does this mean? Does it mean that His Grace the Duke is going to start a serious competition among the stars of the family? Umdim is a threatening place, so managing it well could be a way to demonstrate one's abilities. Am I right? I just thought of it and said it. That. Yes. That's what I was about to talk about. The orc said, hiding his surprise. Why would the stars of the Brudu family leave their own fief to stay in the Duke's palace? To catch the Duke's eye more often. The situation around Repiatagong is similar. Now that Umdim has been obtained, many places will arise for the capable to shine. It's time to boldly step forward, isn't it? I see. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why, instead of looking at the fiefdom now, you should quickly find a place near the Duke and show your face more often. You are lucky. You have made such achievements this time, and Repiatagong thinks highly of you. It's important to establish your position at such times. The orc's words were not wrong. Lower nobles who did not inherit a fiefdom needed to catch the eyes of higher nobles to advance. Those gathered near Repiata had similar motives. Of course, it wasn't that they lacked loyalty to Repiata. But apart from loyalty, it's natural for people to have ambitions for the future. Each had their own desired future and ambitions for staying close to it. I heard you received the position of standard bearer from the Duke. But relying on that and having expectations is too impractical. Look. The standard bearer is honorable and splendid, but its substance is not that great. Moreover, there are many who have served loyally for more than a decade near the Duke. Whom would the Duke care for first? No matter how great your achievements, there are limits. As Johann listened quietly, the orc became more passionate in his speech. Unbeknownst to himself, he was sincerely making an argument that didn't need to be made. There was also the fact that Johann had saved his life, but that could be repaid with gold. He didn't need to advise this much. It was because of Johann's attentive listening. Other nobles didn't listen as seriously. Even the knight dastard, who barely escaped a beggar's fate, ignored the orc's advice. The fief you've received is not enough. You must quickly catch the Duke's eye to receive more fiefdoms and positions, and arrange a marriage to expand further. Wait. Hold on. Are you by any chance my vassal? At Johann's words, the orc blushed. It seemed he had gone too far with his advice. I appreciate the advice. You speak so seriously, I have to respond seriously too. I understand that being near Repiatagong is a great opportunity. Indeed, not only Repiata but also the stars of Brudu were opportunities themselves for the young lower nobility. There was a reason why young people, who did not receive a fiefdom, came trusting in their one talent. Do you think Repiatagong will inherit the Duke's title? How would I know? But being afraid of such a thing and doing nothing is very foolish. I asked the wrong question then. Do you think you are worthy to pledge your loyalty to Repiatagong? Of course, I think so. That's why I am here, isn't it? A person as smart as you wouldn't need to show their face to know who is loyal to them, right? The orc was at a loss for words. He stammered out his response. Well, of course, but the heart of a person tends to lean towards those they see often. The lower nobility tried hard to make their presence known at the courts or castles of the nobles they served. They participated in events or hunts hosted by the nobles, and took the lead in wars. All of this was a desperate attempt to get noticed. However, Johann did not think it was necessary. Especially in the case of Repiata. Checking the fiefdom and inspecting the mercenaries seemed like a more worthwhile task. Of course, since my fief is not too far, I intend to cooperate with the governance as much as possible. That should be enough. Is that so? Somehow, the conversation had taken a turn where the orc seemed to be trying to pull Johann in. Even though that wasn't the intention. Returning to our earlier conversation, do you have anyone in mind who could be recommended as an administrator? Are you seriously asking me that now? Are you sincere? The orc was flustered. Was this a suggestion that he would appoint the orc as an administrator? Usually, they would choose a young lower noble who had studied, or a priest skilled in numbers. I don't care much about status if they are only good at numbers. But if they are worse at calculations than me, that's a problem. Are you good at calculations? Johann looked at him intently. The orc spoke again, scared. I didn't mean to insult you. I was just surprised and asked. I'm better than most since I learned from a priest skilled in arithmetic. It'll give you a problem. A person bequeathed 1 gold coin and 1/7 of the remainder to the eldest, then 2 coins and 1/7 of the remainder to the second, and so on in the same way to the youngest, resulting in an equal distribution for all. How many children and how many gold coins? 6 children and 36 coins. And if you're not going to introduce someone smart, could you stop the pointless talk? Chapter 100.2. The orc was astonished. This was a challenging arithmetic problem posed by a renowned orc scholar, not meant to be solved so quickly. He'll personally introduce and send someone suitable for the administrator role. Oh. Thank you. The orc left more tense and surprised than when he arrived. Stephen, watching this, asked in wonder. Why did that orc leave so startled? Well, I'm not sure. Stephen was not surprised or displeased even after seeing the orc. Johann realized. He had heard that profligate noble heirs often borrow money from orcs, but he never expected it to be true right in front of him. Have you been wandering around the city again? Wandering around? It's socializing. Stephen was serious. Unlike Johann, for a noble born in a noble family, it was a natural duty to meet and be treated by influential people in the city. You'd be surprised who I met. I met Haramrik Gong, the third of the Bredoux family. Haramrik. Johann looked surprised. It was clear that Haramrik was not someone who would normally be in Umdim. Where? At a noble's mansion here. Ah, wait. This shouldn't be talked about elsewhere. The Lord wanted to keep it quiet. All right. He'll keep the secret too. Lead the way. Who? Even if I keep the secret, I should meet and greet him. Isn't that polite? Ah, that's true. So Johann? Haramrik was startled. He recognized Stephen beside him and looked resentful. He had asked him to keep a secret. The people in the mansion wondered what they had done, but it was a futile tantrum. How could the nobles of the city possibly stop Johann now? Pleased to meet you, Haramrik Gong. I came here to pay my respects. Ah, no, Sir Johann. Haramrik somehow looked caught off guard. Johann became certain of something in that expression. He had come to test a theory. Gong, could you send away the people around us? I have something to say in private. That. I shall. The Duke's third child was more like a merchant than a soldier. He wasn't very strong-willed. Unable to refuse Johann's request, he just complied. From this, Johann became even more convinced. No matter how frail, a person of rank wouldn't act like this unless they felt guilty. What brings you to Umdim? I had close friends here, but couldn't contact them due to circumstances, and now. Ah. I see. Gong, why did you hire an assassin? While Haramrik was shocked, Johann grabbed his hand to prevent him from getting up. Gong, I have a wizard in my camp. It's easy to find out who hired someone. And no way? Really? Stephen, who was nearby, exclaimed in surprise. Hearing that, he realized something was amiss. He pointed at Haramrik and said, Did you send mercenaries to the mansion, Gong? How could you? What? No. Do you think him mad to do such a thing? No. It's quite possible. Stephen clapped his hands. Thinking about all the things Ulrika had tried to kill him, it seemed quite plausible. At such a misunderstanding, Haramrik wept. A monstrous knight suddenly stormed in, growling. The nobles of the mansion didn't come to help, and because of Stephen, he was caught in a strange misunderstanding. It was like a nightmare. Killing kin was something not even nobles could easily get away with. Moreover, the Duke didn't favor his children. The gallows loomed in his mind. Don't talk nonsense, Stephen. Would Gong do such a heinous thing? No. You just haven't seen greedy siblings. Where else would those mercenary scoundrels have come from? Really, it's not true. Sir, please believe me. Johann felt the situation was going awry because of Stephen. How did he end up consoling a weeping Haramrik? Gong, don't worry. I believe you. Sir. But, Gong, you did try to kill the magistrate, didn't you? Ooh-hoo-hoo. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Haramrik might have resisted answering a simple question, but overwhelmed by being wrongly accused, he responded unwittingly when spoken to kindly. Why did you do that? It was an unexpected reason indeed. The magistrate, contrary to his foolish image, had many connections. Not just in the Slovak kingdom, but also with city-states. Repiata didn't try to kill him for nothing but to make use of him. I see. To keep an eye on a younger sibling who's more talented. That's not true. What Haramrik was after wasn't Repiata, but the position of magistrate. By killing the magistrate, the position would be vacant, and he planned to appeal to Repiata with the bonds of blood and his own abilities. He was aiming for a position like a city councillor, magistrate, or treasurer. Please, don't tell father. Please? Haramrik begged Johann with tears and sobs. Johann patted his back. It felt like experiencing a cheap comedy. Stephen asked incredulously. No. You are older, why would you ask such a thing? I don't need a duke title or anything. I don't even have the confidence. I would be satisfied with a position like a councillor or treasurer. For a city councillor or treasurer to say was not a statement made lightly. To the common people, it was the pinnacle of success. Not all children of nobility coveted the highest power. Some of them just wanted to live in luxury and comfort. Moreover, Duke Brudu was a person who tested his children strictly. The frail Haramrik had always thought of running away several times. Understanding the situation, Johann spoke to Haramrik in a soft and warm voice. Gong. You can relax. I will not let this secret out. Oh really? Johann's expression, while comforting Haramrik, was cold and devoid of any smile, but Haramrik couldn't see his face. Stephen felt a chill. From an outsider's perspective, Haramrik seemed like prey bitten by a lion. Chapter 101.11. Johann was very pleased. He couldn't believe he had the opportunity to become close with the lineage of Brudu so easily. To be exact, it wasn't just getting close, it was more like having it in his hands. In this era, lineage held great value. Especially for a famous family like the Brudu. Just like Stephen of the Abner family, who had nothing but could use the family name to his advantage, Haramrik was the same. But Haramrik was different from Stephen. While Stephen had made many mistakes and had almost no assets left, Haramrik. Even so, you must have received something from the Duke, have you already lost it? No. How could that be? Johann's guess was accurate. Like Repiata who received a city, Haramrik also received something from the Duke. However, unlike his siblings, Haramrik had little confidence in maintaining his fiefdom and wealth. It was because of the location of the fiefdom. But it's almost as if you're going to lose it soon. You were given those pathetic islands in the south of Aegean Sea, but how many vicious people are there nearby? It's so far from here. Haramrik, who received an island in the middle of the sea swarming with small kingdoms, city-states, and pagans in boats, pirates, lacked the confidence to defend it. To hire more mercenaries with the gold received and take charge as a feudal lord himself? What if he gets caught there? Haramrik didn't have the guts for that. That's possible. Gong. It's amazing that you've managed to keep it until now. Boo-hoo-hoo. Sir. Why did I only meet someone like you now? Johann doubted that Haramrik would have replaced the magistrate if he had died. Repiata didn't seem so weak, and Repiata had his own vassals. Of course, it was natural for Haramrik to be unable to make a rational decision in this anxious situation, not knowing when he might become penniless. After that, Johann completely won over Haramrik by tightening and loosening his control. When Johann and Stephen were about to leave the mansion, Haramrik even asked if he could stay in Johann's camp. Gong. Don't worry too much. My friendship will protect you. Don't be swayed by what others say, and when it's time to make a decision, rely on me. I will do that. I will do so, sir. Really, all sorts of things happen. Right. I was sure that Haramrik Gong had hired the mercenaries. Not everyone in the world tries to kill their kin. Stephen looked at Johann with a very lukewarm expression. Then what about me? Anyway, you did very well. Stephen. I didn't know we could get close on such an occasion. It turns out that most of Haramrik's associates were merchants, artists, and priests. The useful young knights under him were gravitating towards the first and second sons, and Haramrik himself wasn't a nobleman who could control knights. In that situation, Johann must have seemed like an angel descended into hell. This is it. Johann moved around Dolek and Palmon while drawing a map. More than dozens of elite soldiers followed him to guard Johann. Passers-by and farmers couldn't even breathe and bowed their heads. The news from the city was slowly spreading. What do you think? It seems like a nice town. There's a good amount of fish around here, so we can harvest more grain and the livestock we have. The Elohim families all kept their promise. They sent someone suitable to be an administrator. He asked, and he studied at a university in the Catalian Peninsula and learned arithmetic under a famous defense scholar. That's why he had no trouble calculating with Eastern numbers instead of ancient empire numbers. He asked with a slightly tense face, "Do you have any specific instructions?" No matter how much you learn and gain knowledge under an outstanding person, it means little to a feudal lord. Eventually, you have to work to the noble's liking. Knights like Johann often made excessive demands. Like trying to scrape together a few hundred gold coins in such a town. Collect taxes according to custom. Be generous if the situation is bad, less so if it's good. Ah. Yes. I'll do that. Surprised by the unexpectedly generous and lenient words, the administrator was startled. I'll give you some silver, so hire some feudal lord subjects who can work for a year. No need to drive out the orphans of the fiefdom, hire them at a fair price too. I've spoken to the Kartana Merchant Guild, so you should be able to buy farming tools at a good price, use them for the fiefdom's farming. If other serfs see and want to use them, make sure they can buy them at a reasonable price. In the spring, plant beans in the fallow land, and if anyone objects, strongly say it's an order and enforce it. When harvesting grain, don't sell it to Umdim just because it's close, sell it nearby and even if it's a bit far. Also, we need to increase livestock in the spare pastures, buy sheep in the cheap autumn. Wait, just a moment. Please wait a moment. The administrator was startled. He didn't expect such detailed and specific instructions. Even a knight who's a feudal lord giving such instructions? He wrote them down one by one, even though he was flustered. He seemed to understand why the Elohim family said. After the instructions ended, the administrator rushed towards the town with a few soldiers. It was to check Johann's instructions. Sinurna asked as if she couldn't understand. Where did you learn such a thing? From a priest in the fiefdom when I was young. Ah, so that's why you were so devout? At Sinurna's words, Suitlik had to tightly grip the reins of his horse. Johann nodded seriously. God is my spear and my shield, the armor that protects my heart. Wait. Didn't you say last time? Chapter 101.2:1. So, what do you think about her Ramrig? If what you said is true, there's nothing to lose. Right. Haramrik didn't seem to have many useful knights around him. In such times, someone like you. Sinurna stopped mid-sentence. Johann and Suitlik urged her on. Continue what you were going to say, why don't you? What were you about to say? Brave? Bold? Cruel? Fierce? I was going to say that one can help but be swayed by a knight more remarkable than Kardirian, but... Sinurna was perceptive enough to know that Johann disliked not only the anti-emperor faction but the emperor himself quite a lot. However, Johann didn't get angry. Instead, he asked curiously. Was the emperor such a great knight? Ah. Kardirian too was a clumsy feudal lord, a despicable emperor, but as a warrior, he was exceptional. Suitlik nodded as if he understood what was being said. He was really impressive in his youth. Not only did he kill several in tournaments. Of course, in my opinion, you seem better. Thank you for the compliment. It's not a compliment. Really better. In my opinion, the emperor still believes Hes the brave warrior of his youth. He thinks that by killing his opponents on the battlefield himself, all problems will be solved, even though it's not the situation. At Suitlik's words, Sinurna nodded. The court wizard of the emperor nodding her head gave credibility to the statement. Excessively trying to solve everything with force. Anyway, becoming friends with Haramrik Gong was a good thing. You really make friends with people well. That's true. It's curious. Sinurna was surprised. Johann didn't seem like a sociable person at all. He had a unique charm, but it didn't seem like the kind of charm that would quickly endear him to high-ranking nobles. If we really become close, we could marry him and then kill him and swallow up his assets. Unless the Duke is a fool, he wouldn't leave such a thing alone. It should be done after the Duke's death. Indeed. The two wizards exchanged grim jokes. Though it was a joke made in the absence of others, Johann felt a chill. While Johann was hiring an administrator and touring the town for refurbishment, the mercenaries and warriors were having a carefree, enjoyable time without any worries. Having gained massive spoils and rewards, it was strange for anyone near the city not to indulge. However, as playtime started to bore them, the most hot-tempered one started to approach Johann and ask where the next expedition would be. "Let's attack the petty kingdom, Sir Knight. They're out of their minds right now. Plus, among us, there are a few who know a lot about them." "No. Let's raid the city folks. Do you know how wealthy those city people are? Just looting one city in the southern peninsula. Pirating ships doesn't seem like a bad idea either." CI. Crazy? Go on the sea? Take a ship? The tribal warriors were intoxicated by the valor Johann displayed and the spoils that followed. They wanted to follow him wherever he went. Of course, some tribal warriors thought, but anyway. But the next expedition took a direction Johann never expected. An unexpected figure came to Umdim. It was Bishop Biagoni from the Republic of Beneto. "The bishop came to see me?" Johann was flustered for the first time in a while. A bishop of such rank not only had high standing within the church but also wielded secular power. There were several bishops like Bishop Biagoni who owned fiefdoms. Of course, Johann wasn't flustered because of the power. He was surprised because someone with whom he had no expected interaction had come. "He's waiting outside. Quickly, an answer. Buy some time. Suitignim. Quickly think of a reason. How would I know the inner thoughts of a clergyman?" Suitig grumbled in disbelief at Johann's sudden urgency. Perhaps has heard about your devout reputation and has come to see you." "I doubt that. I know Bishop Biagoni. He's famous." Sinerna said this while forming a circle with her finger. The lower priests working directly in the town and helping people were mostly deeply faithful and frugal individuals. Even if they wanted to be greedy, it was difficult for them. However, the higher one went, the more greed began to appear. It was somewhat expected. Those who had been nurturing their faith since childhood in monasteries didn't usually rise to high positions. To ascend to high ranks in the church, one needed lineage or a background. Being from noble families was basic, and to become a bishop, one either had to perform miracles or spend a vast amount of gold. Bishop Biagoni belonged to the latter category. Being a noble from the Republic of Beneto and receiving substantial support, he was practically a city person. Then, did he come for a donation? Johann had no intention of donating. He should have gone to the Duke or Repiata. Why come to him? Surely the bishop wouldn't ask a knight for donations. As Sinerna spoke, he sensed something odd. Johann's attitude was too nonchalant. Normally, when a bishop visits, devout people should be shedding tears of joy, right? No matter how bad the rumors about the bishop were, a bishop was still a bishop. Ordinary people considered it a lifetime honor just to meet one and shake hands. It's not out of faith, nor gold coins. What's left then, if not force? Ah. That must be it. The wizards immediately accepted this reasoning. After all, it made the most sense. This area was a bustling marketplace for mercenaries, and it would naturally be a source of anxiety for the Republic. The city of Umdim, which had recently fallen to the Duke, and its surrounding area were precisely where one would land if they toppled over from the Republic. Of course, it was unlikely that the Duke harbored the insane delusion of conquering the Republic. The scale of Umdim city and the Republic were entirely different. However, it was entirely possible to reduce their influence in the vicinity. Oh, brother in faith! To meet like this! Upon meeting, the bishop was overly familiar. He was under a misconception due to the money rumors among the monastic order and priests. It felt like a divine opportunity that such a knight would appear before him in these times and under these circumstances. Chapter 102.1.2 Johann did not refuse the embracing bishop and accepted it. Despite the rumors of having a greasy and corrupt soul, the bishop's appearance was plausible enough to deceive even Johann. True to being a sheep beastman, he had two well-groomed, stylish horns on his head, his face was slightly emaciated like a priest practicing asceticism, and his voice and eyes were full of restrained power. Surely, not just anyone could be a bishop. Of course, one needs a supporting family in the background, but personal capability is essential too. After the greetings, Bishop Biajoni praised Johann for capturing the troll and wiping out the den of the heretics, clapping his hands and stamping his feet in an experienced manner. Even a knight who shunned the bishop upon hearing his rumors couldn't help but be swayed by his reputation and aura once meeting him face to face. Especially after hearing such words directly. Of course, Johann was thinking about what to have for dinner, letting the bishop's words go in one ear and out the other. What was interesting was how well the bishop knew about the events that happened far away. It meant that the communication between the church orders was that detailed. No surprise there. Even now, most of the record-keeping and administration in the fiefdoms were handled by the church. Johann waited, then bowed his head and covered his face with his hands. To anyone looking, it seemed like he was overwhelmed with emotion and holding back tears. "What's wrong? I didn't expect to meet you, Bishop. Don't be too nervous. I, Biajoni, am just a humble servant of God." Karamaf, who was lying next to them, growled indifferently. Biajoni flinched. It seemed he was quite afraid of wolves, given Karamaf's size. "We are all the same souls before God. I, Biajoni, consider you a brother in faith, and you should also consider me one." After an awkward moment passed, the bishop began to get to the point. He praised the bravery of the mercenaries and warriors led by Johann, and then asked where he planned to go now that the city's fight was over. "I haven't decided yet." "Then fight for faith and belief, brother." For a moment, Johann thought the bishop was suggesting going on a crusade, but realized the bishop wasn't that insane. It was just a fancy way of saying to fight under the bishop's name. In this era, everyone had many enemies, especially the powers attached to the Aegean Sea. For instance, the Beneto Republic fought with other city-states in the west, small kingdoms in the east, and pagans and pirates in the southern sea. In this light, the several hundred fierce and brave warriors led by Johann were certainly noteworthy, especially for their accomplishments in the recent siege. "Fighting for the city? No. You're fighting for me, Biajoni. Remember, that's different. Don't fall for the city folks' attempts to corrupt you." The bishop stated it bluntly. Johann was puzzled. "Don't people usually say they're fighting for the city? The path of a faithful person is always lonely. There are many who target me, Biajoni. Both outside and inside the city. Will you protect me with your well-honed sword and fiery faith?" Of course. Though Johann intended to negotiate depending on how much the other party was willing to pay, he initially agreed. After all, he could always come up with an excuse to refuse later. However, the bishop turned out to be surprisingly generous. He had a servant bring out a chest full of Empire gold coins and insisted that Johann fill his hands with them himself. It was an effective display of wealth. With this much, he could easily employ people for a year and still have some left. "I don't doubt your faith, brother, but those you employ will need gold. Is this sufficient?" "It's more than enough, thank you." Johann felt slightly baffled as his expectations were off. He had thought the bishop's friendly demeanor and mention of faith were ploys to hire him cheaply. But with this amount of gold, such tactics were unnecessary. Was it just a conversation to build camaraderie? "But, Bishop, I am a knight of His Excellency the Duke, and at the same time, a cavalry officer." Don't worry about that, brother. I have no intention of clashing with His Excellency. Even if I did, I wouldn't send you to such a place. Do you feel reassured now? Yes, thank you. Chapter 102.2. I said greedy, not stupid. Sinurna said matter-of-factly. Coming to seek help and being stingy with gold was a fool's act. If the bishop had been such a person, he would have died long ago. Any tyrant would at least lavish their subordinates without stint. The gold offered to you is hardly a significant amount for the bishop. If he wants, he can earn much more at any time. In the north, silver, iron, and wool from the empire, and in the south, olive oil, dyes, glass, and crafted jewels, and from the eastern seas, silk and spices flow into this place, making it the best spot to amass wealth. The bishop, with a diocese here, was as good as having a purse overflowing with gold. So, this friendly approach is because of betrayal, after all? Sinurna smiled broadly. Johann was a pleasant conversationalist. It was rare to find nobility who understood and didn't arrogantly shout their own opinions. I suppose so. The politics of the Republic can be somewhat barbaric. From the perspective of Sinurna, a typical empire person, the system of city-states where influential families shared power seemed extremely unstable. Even those elected as magistrates could be gone with a few mistakes. Suetig agreed and added, "In Beneto, there are those who can give more gold than the bishop offered. From the bishop's point of view, it must be unsettling. After all, mercenaries are reliable when it's convenient but become suspicious when the tide turns. Hiring mercenaries was always a dilemma. Even if one pays them well, there is no assurance they won't betray. It was not much different even for soldiers led by knights. Knights were human too. If all knights were so loyal and noble, there would be no talk of rogue knights. Protecting the bishop seems like a profitable business. I'm not sure if it can be called a business, but I agree it's a good opportunity." Biagioni was extremely satisfied. Not only had he spoken with Repiata, but also with Count Ganelwood. He had sincerely conveyed that the Republic had no intention of fighting with the Duke. Of course, that wasn't the only reason for his satisfaction. It was because of the hundreds of soldiers following him. Johann, as well as Gerdulf and Marco, were reliable, despite their somewhat suspicious appearances. Even warriors like Aclada were dependable. "Is there anyone who dares to threaten the bishop?" "Ah, brother. There are indeed many immoral and corrupt people in the world," the bishop said with a sad expression. "Among the families affiliated with the city council, there are those who envy and are jealous of Biagioni. How dare they threaten Biagioni in the diocese and openly blackmail? Such wretches deserve divine punishment. The Republic might only be a council in name, but it was almost like a noble family. The families employed mercenaries like private soldiers and each ruled over their own part of the widespread Republic's territory. When conflicts arose, it was common for them to attack each other. Bloodshed ensued. Dozens of people appeared over a grass-covered hill. Marco was shocked to see the flag of one of the families from the south of Catalia. Sir, that's the flag of the Orlan family." "Should I know that?" "Well, that family is from the south, and the southern families are." Marco hesitated. It was somewhat embarrassing for him to speak, being a captive. "Are they a vassal family of the Emperor?" "Yes. They probably are. Thanks for telling me. That's good to know." Johann observed the knights and soldiers belonging to the Emperor's faction. They were not at all intimidated by the bishop's substantial military force. Of course not. They rode up to the bishop, stopped, and arrogantly raised their heads. They were polite, but their expressions were not. "What are these warriors doing, Your Grace, Bishop?" "They are here to help Biagioni eliminate the rogue bands in his fiefdom and deal with monsters." "For such a thing, aren't they too rough and untrained?" A knight of the Orlan family frowned as he looked at the eastern tribal warriors. The nobles in the southern part of the peninsula were heavily influenced by the empire. To them, the eastern nomadic tribes were no different from barbarians. Aclada was chuckling, but his eyes were cold. He seemed ready to draw his bow at a moment's notice. Johann gestured for restraint. "It's better than borrowing power from the Emperor. Is your master still acting like a loyal servant of the Emperor?" "You speak too harshly, Bishop." The knight glared at the bishop as he spoke. In this situation, a sword fight wouldn't break out, so it felt like they were both intent on spewing venomous words to their heart's content. "There are rumors that the corruption you committed has reached the Holy One. I hope that's just a rumor. To believe such rumors. I swear to God, this Biagioni has never harbored corrupt thoughts." At the bishop's words, the knight snickered. Anyone who had spent time in the Republic knew that the bishop was a greedy person. Moreover, the bishop was currently under attack for the corruption he had committed, which had been reported to the church. They weren't afraid of a powerful figure who could crumble with just a little more pressure. Despite the insult that would normally be unthinkable to utter, the bishop remained unshaken. There were times when one must endure. Moreover, since he had brought soldiers with him this time, the opposition wouldn't dare to attack for a while. Well, who would believe that? As they idly chatted without any real substance, Johann had finished his calculations. Upon reflection, being employed like this was an opportunity. It wasn't just about receiving the bishop's gold. It was an opportunity to act in the name of the bishop. There was no need to just take the offered gold and stay quiet. It was all right to take everything that could be taken while the opportunity lasted. "Prepare to attack. I am Johann of Yates. I am the cavalry officer of Bridew and a knight of the Duke. State your names." As Johann suddenly declared an attack, the opposing knights were taken aback. "What are you talking about? Didn't you say you were employed by the bishop? Are you acting on your own without the bishop's orders?" "Right now, the bishop is." The knights could afford to be so confident with their much smaller force because of the bishop. Bayajoni, who was under attack for various corruptions, was in a situation where he should have been more restrained. They couldn't even dream of striking first. However, Johann was not a mercenary who simply followed orders obediently. Moreover, the fact that the enemies failed to understand their situation and mocked them gave him a plausible justification. A knight who stood up unable to tolerate insults to the bishop. For the insult to the bishop, I will cleanse it with this sword. If you are a knight, reveal your name and face me. Wait a minute. The bishop was horrified and tried to stop them. Hiring Johann and his warriors was meant to be a show of force, not to initiate an attack. If they rashly got angry and ran amok, how were they any different from mercenaries? Attack them. Catch every single one of them so they can't escape. I've been waiting for those words, Sir Knight. Aklada cheered and started to quickly outflank with the tribal warriors. It was a move to block the enemy's retreat. Gerdolf, Marco split left and right to charge, and Johann rushed in from the front. Catch that man! He must be captured alive at all costs. At Johann's shout, the warriors grinned. Speaking like that, it seemed that their leader was quite valuable. The battle was short but fierce. Those who had the will to fight were struck by arrows and beaten down first, and the remaining ones quickly surrendered. The difference in numbers was too great from the start. We surrender. The remaining knights and soldiers surrendered with faces that couldn't believe what had happened. They couldn't understand what the bishop was thinking when he did this. Was he prepared to lose his position as bishop? Bishop! We will take these prisoners according to tradition. No. No. Brother! What is this madness? What do you think you're doing acting on your own? But didn't these men insult you, bishop?